The girl on the curb. Sky was gray above Los Angeles, heavy with clouds, but holding back the rain. It was the kind of afternoon when people rushed from place to place without looking up. Cars moved fast, faces blurred. Everyone had somewhere to be. On the edge of a quiet block, near a closed-down bookstore and an old gas station, a girl sat on the curb. Her clothes were dirty and thin, her hair tangled and tied back with a piece of string. Beside her sat a worn-out backpack and a cardboard sign with shaky letters that read, "Just hungry. Anything helps." Her name was Ava. She was 16 years old. Most people walked past without seeing her. Some turned their heads. A few looked, then looked away. She didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just sat there, arms wrapped around her knees, trying to stay warm and invisible at the same time. She had been there for hours. What no one knew was that Ava had once been a straight-A student. She used to write poems in the margins of her notebooks. She loved strawberries, old movies, and riding her bike down hills with her eyes closed. But that was before her mother got sick, before the hospital bills, before the eviction, before she ran out of relatives to stay with, before the shelter said they were full. Now she lived wherever the night allowed. Some nights on benches, some nights under bridges, and on days like this, on sidewalks, hoping someone would notice without making her feel ashamed. But then, something changed. A man walked by. He was wearing a dark hoodie, jeans, and sunglasses. His hair was a bit long, and he had a quiet presence like someone used to moving through the world without asking for attention. He didn't rush past her. He slowed down. He stopped. Ava looked up, expecting judgment or pity. But he crouched down instead. "Hi," he said gently. "Are you okay?" She blinked, unsure if he was talking to her. "I'm fine," she whispered. He glanced at her sign, then at her hands. They were red from the cold. "What's your name?" he asked. "Ava," she replied. "What's yours?" He smiled softly. Double quotes Keanu. Double quotes. Her eyes widened. She'd heard that name before, but it didn't fully connect. "You're the actor?" He nodded. "Sometimes." What are you doing here?" she asked. "Just walking," he said. "I do that a lot when I'm thinking." She nodded slowly. She understood that. Walking helped when you didn't want to feel trapped. He looked at her for a moment, then asked, "Have you eaten today?" She shook her head. "Not since yesterday." "Come with me," he said gently. She froze. I'm not trying to save you," he said quickly. "I just thought maybe you'd like some food." There was something honest in his voice, no pressure, no pride. After a long pause, she stood up. They walked in silence to a small diner 2 blocks away. It wasn't fancy. The booths were torn. The smell of bacon and coffee filled the air. Keanu asked for a quiet corner booth. Ava sat down slowly, still unsure if this was real. The waitress came over and looked at her with surprise, then glanced at Keanu. He just nodded politely. "Whatever she wants," he said. Ava looked at the menu like it was a painting. It had been so long since she'd been able to choose food. She picked eggs, toast, and a chocolate milkshake. They ate mostly in silence. He didn't ask too many questions, just listened. After a while, he asked, "How long have you been on your own?" She looked down at her plate. 6 months, she said quietly, "since my mom passed." His expression didn't change, but his eyes softened. "I'm sorry," she shrugged. "I don't talk about it. You don't have to," he said. "Not unless you want to." They finished their food. Outside, the sky finally began to cry. Light rain tapped on the windows. "Do you have somewhere to go tonight?" he asked. She shook her head. "They're full again. The shelter, I mean." He thought for a moment, then pulled out his phone. Double quotes, "I know a woman who runs a safe house for girls," he said. "Not a shelter, a real home, small, clean, respectful. I can call her, but only if you want me to." Ava hesitated. Trust was hard. Everyone always said the right things, but sometimes they didn't mean them. But then she remembered the way he spoke, the way he didn't push, the way he listened. She nodded. He made the call. Her name was Rosa. She answered after 2 rings and said yes before he even finished explaining. "Bring her," Rosa said. "We'll make space." They walked to the car. It was a simple black sedan, nothing flashy. As they drove, Ava stared out the window. Why are you helping me? She asked finally. Keanu was quiet for a moment. Then he said, when I was young, I lost someone too. I know what it's like to feel like the world stopped caring. Ava didn't answer. But for the first time in months, her hands stopped shaking. The house was small, painted soft yellow, with warm lights glowing in the windows. Rosa came out to greet them. She was older, with kind eyes and a voice like music. Hi, sweetheart, she said to Ava. Come inside. You're safe now. Ava looked at Keanu one last time. Thank you, she whispered. He smiled. No need to thank me. But she did anyway, because she knew this moment, this dinner, this stranger had just changed everything. What she didn't know yet was that her story wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. And soon, the whole world would hear it. The room with the blue blanket. Smell of cinnamon and warm bread drifted through the air as Ava stepped into the house. Her shoes were soaked from the rain, and her clothes clung to her body. She was cold, tired, and unsure if she was dreaming. Rosa smiled gently and held out a towel. Come on in, honey. Let's get you dry. Ava nodded, her voice caught in her throat. She had expected another shelter: white walls, crowded beds, people yelling down the hall. But this house felt like something different. It felt like a memory she'd once had. The hallway was painted in soft peach. Photos of smiling girls hung on the wall, all different ages, all once lost, now found. Rosa led her to a small room with a single bed, a wooden nightstand, and a blanket folded neatly at the foot. The blanket was light blue. It reminded Ava of her mother's scarf. This will be your room, Rosa said. You can stay as long as you need. Ava didn't know what to say. So she just whispered, thank you. Rosa patted her shoulder. You're safe here, baby. Rest first. We'll talk later. Meanwhile, across town, Keanu Reeves sat in a small music shop, strumming a guitar softly. He wasn't working on a movie. He wasn't at an event. He just needed time to think. He couldn't get Ava out of his head. Her eyes, her voice, the way she sat on that sidewalk like she wanted to disappear. He had walked past many homeless people before. He had helped a few, given money, food. But something about her, something had pulled him closer. Maybe it was the quiet pain she carried. Maybe it was that he saw himself in her, lost, drifting, waiting for something to make sense. He thought of his own past, the loss of his baby daughter, the accident that took her mother, the grief that followed like a shadow. Fame never shielded him from pain. It only made it harder to share. But helping Ava, it felt real. It felt right. And something deep in his heart told him this wasn't just a what-I'm act. Back at the house, Ava sat on the bed, holding the soft blue blanket in her hands. She wasn't used to softness anymore. Everything in her world had become hard: sidewalks, benches, strangers' stares. She ran her fingers along the edge of the blanket, breathing in the scent of lavender. She hadn't cried in months. She had told herself she wouldn't, not since her mother died. Not when she got kicked out of her cousin's apartment. Not even when her shoes tore open in the rain. But now, in the quiet of this room, she cried. Not loudly, not wildly. Just silent tears. They fell on her hands and onto the blanket, and somehow that made her feel lighter. The next morning, Rosa sat with her at the kitchen table. There was oatmeal, toast, and a hot mug of tea waiting for her. How long were you out there? Rosa asked gently. Ava shrugged. Depends what you mean by out there. Rosa nodded. Fair enough. I'm not here to push, just to listen. Ava stared at her food. Then, slowly, she began to speak. She told Rosa about the apartment she once lived in. The sound of her mom singing while cooking. The hospital visits. The bills. The eviction notice. The nights she stayed in a 24-hour laundromat to stay safe. Rosa didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. She just listened. And when Ava finished, Rosa reached across the table and held her hand. You are not broken, she said. You are just tired. Tired girls are not lost, they're just waiting to land. Ava didn't know what that meant. But it stayed in her heart like a quiet light. 3 days passed. Then one afternoon, there was a knock on the door. Ava opened it. And there he was. Keanu. She blinked. What are you doing here? He smiled. Just checking in. She stepped aside, letting him in. They sat in the living room while Rosa baked cookies in the kitchen. "How's it going?" he asked. "Weird," Ava said. "Good, but weird. I'm not used to people being kind without a reason. Kindness doesn't need a reason," he said. "Sometimes it's the only thing that keeps us human." She nodded slowly, then asked, "Why did you stop that day?" Keanu looked at her carefully. "Because you look like someone I once loved," he said softly, "not in how you looked, but in how you felt." Ava didn't speak. But she understood. Rosa joined them and handed them warm cookies. "You to have something special," she said. Ava raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "You're both survivors," Rosa said. "You've both been knocked down, and yet here you are, sitting, sharing cookies. That's rare." Keanu chuckled. "It is." They ate in silence for a while, but what they didn't know was that their photo, just a quiet shot of them, sitting in that room, Keanu and Ava sharing cookies, was about to go viral. Someone had taken it through the front window, not to be cruel, but to share a beautiful moment. By the next morning, millions had seen it. Keanu Reeves shares cookies with homeless teen in recovery. Home, people started asking questions. Who was the girl? What's her story? How did she meet him? And just like that, Ava's name started to spread. Some would be kind, others not so much. And soon, a part of her past she thought was buried would come crawling back, because someone who had once forgotten her was about to come looking for her. The name she hadn't heard in months. Ava woke up early the next morning to the sound of voices outside her room, soft, quiet, but filled with concern. She opened the door slightly and saw Rosa and Keanu standing near the kitchen. Rosa was holding her phone. Keanu looked tense. "What's going on?" Ava asked, rubbing her eyes. Rosa turned toward her, eyes kind but serious. "Ava," she said gently, "someone posted a picture of you and Keanu sitting here yesterday. It's gone viral." Ava's stomach sank. "What kind of picture?" "Just the two of you," Rosa said, smiling, eating cookies, "nothing bad." But the internet picked it up. Keanu stepped closer. "People are asking about you. They want to know who you are, where you came from." Ava froze. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't want to be seen." "We know," Rosa said, "and we'll protect your privacy as much as we can." But it was too late. By noon, news outlets had shared the story. "Keanu Reeves seen mentoring homeless teen girl." That's what the headline said. Blogs speculated. Commenters guessed at her story. Some praised her strength, others questioned her. And then, in a small apartment 3 cities away, a man saw her face on his phone and dropped his coffee cup. "Ava," he said aloud, staring at the screen. His name was Greg. He was her father. Greg hadn't seen Ava in over a year. After her mother died, he disappeared. He'd been in and out of her life since she was born, sometimes there, mostly not. The last time they spoke, they shouted at each other. He told her he wasn't ready to raise a kid alone. She called him a coward. He hadn't tried to find her since. Not until now. His hands shook as he read the article. "Homeless Girl Given Second Chance" by Keanu Reeves. Part of him felt ashamed. Another part felt angry. Why was a stranger stepping in when he should have been the one to help? He picked up his phone and started dialing. Back at Rosa's house, Ava tried to ignore the attention. She kept her head down, helped Rosa in the garden, played board games with the other girls. Keanu came by every other day to check in, bring books, or take her out for quiet walks through the park. He never treated her like a news story, just like a person, but the pressure outside was building. Paparazzi began showing up near the house. One even tried to sneak a photo through the back fence. Rosa tightened security. They planted bushes, added curtains, asked friends to patrol the block. But then came the phone call. Rosa, Greg's voice was sharp, breathless. "I'm looking for my daughter, Ava." Ava sat at the kitchen table, staring at the phone like it was poison. "What does he want?" she asked. Rosa sat beside her. "He says he wants to see you." Ava laughed bitterly. "Now, after all this time." Keanu sat across from her. "You don't have to do anything you don't want to do." Ava looked at him. "He left me. He made me feel like I was trash. And now you're stronger." Keanu said softly, "You don't need his permission to be whole. She thought for a long moment, then said, "I'll talk to him." But only once. They met at a small community center nearby, neutral ground. Rosa and Keanu came too, but waited in the hall. Greg walked in wearing a wrinkled shirt and holding a bouquet of cheap flowers. His eyes were heavy with guilt. Ava sat still, arms folded. "Hi," he said. "Hi," she replied. He sat down across from her. The silence stretched long between them. Finally, he said, "You've grown." "People do that," she said coldly. He flinched. "I saw you in the news," he said. "I didn't know you were homeless." She finished, "Yeah. Thanks for noticing." Greg looked down. "I messed up, I know that." "You didn't just mess up," Ava said, her voice cracking. "You left me. After Mom died, I needed you, and you disappeared." He nodded slowly. "I was scared. Broken. I thought I had nothing to give. You were my father," she said. "You didn't need to give me anything. You just had to stay." Tears ran down his face. "I'm sorry." Ava wanted to yell, to walk out, to tell him it was too late. But instead, she just said, "I'm not the same girl anymore." "I can see that," he whispered. "I'm not asking you to fix anything," she added. "I don't need saving. Not from you. Not from anyone." He nodded again. "Can I call you sometimes?" She paused, then said, "Maybe later. Right now, I'm building something without you." When she left the room, Keanu stood. "You okay?" he asked. Ava wiped her face. "I think so." "You were brave," he said. "I don't feel brave." She whispered, "That's what makes it real." He replied, "Bravery isn't loud. Sometimes it's just showing up." They walked back to the car. And in that quiet space, something changed in Ava. She felt lighter, not because her father had apologized, but because she had spoken. She had faced it. She wasn't running anymore. And later that night, as she lay in bed under the blue blanket, she wrote her first poem in over a year. It was about silence. And how sometimes it speaks louder than pain. What she didn't know was that Keanu had a plan. A quiet one. And it would soon give Ava something she had never dared to dream of again. The letter in the jacket pocket. 3 weeks passed, and the noise around Ava slowly began to fade. The world moved on to other headlines, other stories. But inside Rosa's house, something beautiful was growing. Ava started helping around the home more. She organized the pantry. She read stories to the younger girls. She began tutoring one of them in math. For the first time in what felt like forever, she was not just surviving. She was living. One afternoon, while helping fold laundry, Ava found an old denim jacket in the donation pile. It was a little too big, but it felt warm and safe. She slipped it on and stuck her hands into the pockets. That's when she found it. A folded piece of paper, worn at the edges. She pulled it out and saw a name scribbled in the corner. Keanu. She opened it carefully. It was a letter, written in neat, careful handwriting. "Dear Ava, you once asked me why I helped you. I couldn't answer fully at the time, not because I didn't. No, but because it didn't feel like the right moment. Now, I think you deserve the full truth. You remind me of my sister. When we were young, she went through a dark time. She felt invisible, small, unwanted. I didn't notice the signs until it was almost too late. I lost her to illness not long after. It broke something in me. When I saw you sitting there on that street, I saw her pain in your eyes, and something inside me said, 'Don't walk away this time.' So I didn't. But Ava, you're not my sister, you're you. And you are powerful. I've seen it in the way you speak, the way you think, the way you walk through pain without even knowing how strong you are. You are not forgotten. Not now, not ever. If you're reading this, it means you found the jacket I left here. I left it on purpose, because I wanted you to know that even when I'm not nearby, I believe in you." Keanu stared at the letter for a long time, then folded it carefully and placed it in the inside pocket, over her heart. That evening, over dinner, Rosa told the girls something unexpected. "Someone donated a large gift to our home," she said, smiling. "It's anonymous, but they've asked us to use it to build something new." "What kind of something?" one of the girls asked. "A center," Rosa replied. "A real place, bigger than this house. A safe space with classrooms, art, therapy." Food, beds, and a garden. Ava looked up. Who donated it? Rosa smiled but said nothing. Ava already knew. A week later, Keanu came by for a visit. He brought a small plant in a pot. Green. Fresh, new. It's for the garden, he said. Ava took it and smiled. You're really not good at being mysterious. He laughed. I try. They sat outside under a tree in the backyard. The breeze was soft. The sky was a pale blue. You know, she said, I used to think the world didn't want people like me, people like you. He asked. Homeless, broken, poor, invisible. Keanu looked at her. Ava, people like you are the ones who change the world. Not because they want to, but because they survive when no one's looking. She nodded slowly. I want to help, not just here, everywhere. You will, he said. And she did. Too. Months later, Ava stood on a small stage at the opening of the Rise Center, a new facility built with the donation. She was the guest speaker. She wore the denim jacket with the letter still tucked inside. I was a girl sitting on a street corner, she said, and someone saw me. He didn't try to fix me. He just listened. And because of that, I got to remember who I was. This place isn't just walls and beds, she continued. It's a promise that no one is too far gone. No one is too broken. No one is too forgotten. People clapped. Some cried. Keanu stood at the back, watching with quiet pride. She had become more than he ever imagined. But just as things were settling, someone from Ava's past showed up again. Not her father. Someone worse. His name was Darren. He had been her mother's boyfriend for a short time. Cruel, unpredictable, loud. He wasn't around long, but the damage he caused stuck. He had once yelled at Ava for being in the way, had once thrown a plate that barely missed her head. She'd never told anyone, not even Rosa. But now, he was back, and he had seen the news about her. He saw the stage. He saw the crowd. And in his twisted mind, he saw opportunity. One night, Rosa received a phone call from someone claiming to be a lawyer. They said Darren was planning to sue for guardianship, said he had a right to Ava since her parents were gone, said he wanted custody to help her get her life together. But everyone knew it was about money. He wanted attention. He wanted control. Ava was shaken. She couldn't sleep. She stopped eating for 2 days. What if he takes me away? She whispered to Rosa. He won't, Rosa said firmly. Keanu got involved immediately. He brought in a lawyer, one of the best. Her name was Sandra Chang. Sandra reviewed the files, the history, the threats. He has no case, she said, but he'll make noise, and we have to be ready. Ava felt the fear crawl back in, just when she thought she was safe. But then Keanu told her something she never forgot. People like him, they feed on silence. But you found your voice. So what do I do? She asked. You speak, he said, louder than his lies. The hearing came fast. Darren showed up in a suit to sizes too big and a smirk too wide. Ava sat with Rosa, Sandra, and Keanu behind her. She was nervous, shaking. But when the judge asked if she wanted to speak, she stood. Your Honor, she said, her voice trembling but clear. This man has no right to me. He was never family. Not in the way that matters. I have a home now. I have people who care, and I know who I am. I'm not property. I'm not a prize. I'm not his. The room was silent. The judge looked at Darren. Petition denied, she said. Immediately, Darren stormed out, red-faced. Ava sat back down. And this time, she cried with relief. Keanu handed her a tissue. You were brilliant, he whispered. After that day, things felt different, like the worst part of the storm had passed. Ava continued to speak. To write. To help. And slowly, the world began to see her not as the girl Keanu Reeves helped, but as Ava, a name that meant strength and survival and second chances. But something even bigger was coming, a moment that would take her beyond everything she thought possible. And it would all start with one unexpected phone call from someone who had been listening all along. The voice on the other end. It was a quiet morning when the call came. Ava had just finished her usual routine, sweeping the garden path, feeding the kittens in the backyard, and helping a new girl settle into her room. Things at the Rise Center had become peaceful again. For the first time in her life, Ava had structure, comfort, a place to breathe. She was in the kitchen when Rosa walked in, holding the house phone like it was something fragile. Ava, she said softly, you're going to want to take this. Who is it? Ava asked. Rosa smiled gently. Someone important. Someone who's been following your story for a while now. Ava took the phone with hesitation. Hello? She said. A warm voice replied. Hello, Ava. My name is Oprah Winfrey. Ava's heart skipped a beat. I think you have the wrong number. Oprah laughed softly. No, sweetheart. I have exactly the right one. I saw your interview from the Rise Center. Your story moved me. Not just because of the pain you went through, but because of how you carried yourself through it. Ava couldn't speak. I'm hosting a global summit next month, Oprah continued. It's about healing, rebuilding, and the power of resilience. I'd like you to speak. Ava blinked. Me? Yes, you. Oprah said, not the girl who was rescued, but the girl who rose. When Keanu heard the news, he smiled and hugged her. I told you the world would see you, he said. I'm scared, she admitted. Good, he said. That means it matters. In the weeks that followed, Ava prepared for the summit. She practiced her speech in front of the mirror, in front of the other girls, in front of Keanu. She changed it dozens of times, not because she wanted it to sound perfect, but because she wanted it to feel true. Oprah single quotes team arranged everything. Travel, hotel, a stylist, a coach to help her with breathing and timing. But Ava never changed who she was. She wore her denim jacket to every meeting, the one with Keanu's letter still in the pocket. The summit was held in New York City. People from all over the world were there. Celebrities, leaders, teachers, survivors. The room held stories deeper than oceans. And then it was Ava's turn. She stepped onto the stage, heart pounding. Thousands of eyes watched her. Millions more would watch later. She stood at the microphone and took a breath. My name is Ava. She began. I used to live on sidewalks, in shelters, in silence. I once believed the world had no space for girls like me. I thought kindness was a trick, that love had a cost. She paused, steadying her voice. But then, someone stopped, not to fix me, not to save me, just to listen. That moment didn't erase my pain, but it reminded me that I still mattered. The room was completely silent. This is not a speech about Keanu Reeves, she said. This is a speech about every person who has ever felt forgotten, invisible, unworthy. I'm here to say you are not any of those things. Somewhere in the front row, Oprah wiped a tear. I found my voice, Ava said, and now I use it. Not just for me, but for the ones who haven't found theirs yet. When she finished, there was a long pause. Then the room rose. Every single person stood. Applauding. Crying. Smiling. Ava didn't cry. Not on stage. But when she stepped off, Keanu was waiting for her. You did it, he said. We did it, she replied. After the summit, everything changed again. But this time, it wasn't scary. Ava's inbox filled with invitation, schools asking her to speak, foundations offering partnerships, nonprofits wanting to help her expand the Rise Center model across the country. She agreed to some, said no to others, stayed grounded. And always came home to Rosa's house. It remained her heart. Her anchor. But one day, Rosa sat her down. There's something I've been thinking about, she said. It's time you had something of your own. What do you mean? Ava asked. Your own center, Rosa said. A space that carries your name, your story, your mission. Ava's eyes widened. Me? Yes, you, Rosa said. You've earned it. Keanu joined them later that night. He had already started making calls. Donations were coming in. People wanted to support. They found a building not far from downtown. Old, but strong. With big windows and a rooftop garden. They named it the Ava House. On opening day, Ava gave a tour to the first visitors, young girls, just like her once, who needed a meal, a bed, a voice. She showed them the art room. The quiet space. The library filled with books and bean bags. And then, her favorite part, the hallway wall, lined with photographs of every girl who had passed through Rosa's house and made it to something. Writer. The last photo was hers. Smiling, proud. Alive. Later that night, she stood on the rooftop. Keanu stood beside her, watching the city lights flicker below. You changed everything, he said. Ava shook her head. No, you saw me. That changed everything. What will you do next? He asked. She looked out at the skyline. Find the next girl sitting on the curb, she said. And remind her, she's not invisible. But there was still one more thing to come. A letter from someone she never thought she'd hear from again. Someone who had watched her grow from a distance and was finally ready to tell the truth. The letter she didn't expect 2 months after the Ava house opened. Life had settled into a quiet rhythm. Girls came in, some broken, some just tired, all left with a little more hope than they came with. Ava had grown into her role with grace. She was still the same girl who once sat on a sidewalk, but now she carried herself like someone who knew her worth, not because of fame or cameras or speeches, but because she had finally forgiven herself for surviving. One morning, as she sorted through a pile of mail, she found an envelope with no name on the front, no return address, just the words, "For Ava, when you're ready." Inside was a letter. She opened it slowly, her hands shaking. The handwriting was familiar, rough, uneven. It was from her mother. Dear Ava, if you're reading this, it means I couldn't stay. I hope that wherever this letter ends up, it finds you safe. I left it with Rosa. I told her to give it to you only if she ever saw you smile again, really smile. I know I wasn't perfect. I wish I could have protected you more, kept us in that little apartment forever, made the cancer go away. I'm sorry for every night I cried in the kitchen so you wouldn't hear me. But you were always strong, even when you didn't know it. I used to watch you ride your bike down that big hill and scream like the wind belonged to you. I want you to find that feeling again, the one where you felt free. And Ava, if someone ever tells you that you're too broken to be loved, too lost to come back, or too small to be noticed, remember this. I saw everything in you. I don't know what kind of world you'll grow into, but if you've made it this far, I hope you've found your way. And I hope you never forget that even if I'm not holding your hand anymore, I am still with you. Always. Love. Momava folded the letter slowly, pressing it to her chest. For the first time in years, she felt something settle inside her. Not just peace, not just love. Wholeness. That night, she sat outside under the stars. Keanu joined her with 2 mugs of tea. You okay? He asked. She nodded. I got a letter. From my mom. Rosa held onto it all this time. Do you want to talk about it? Ava smiled. Not yet. But maybe someday. They sat in silence, sipping tea. The world felt still, calm. Wide. Months passed. The Ava house grew into something bigger than a building. It became a movement. Other cities asked to build their own. Schools began teaching Ava's story. A documentary team reached out, and she said yes only if they focused on the girls, not the fame. She met world leaders, spoke at conferences, stood beside Keanu on more than one stage. But she never forgot where it started. A cold sidewalk. A kind stranger. And a choice to believe that kindness still mattered. On the 5th anniversary of the day Keanu found her, she stood again on that same sidewalk. Alone. No cameras, no lights. Just her. She sat down on the same curb and waited. People passed. Some didn't look. But then a woman walking her dog paused, looked down, and asked, Do you need anything? Ava looked up, smiled gently, and said, No, but thank you for asking, because that was all it took. One person noticing, one voice offering, one heart ready to listen. And now, in homes across the world, young people speak her name, not as a girl who was rescued, but as a woman who rose, as a symbol of what happens when kindness meets pain and refuses to let it win. And in every story they tell, her name is whispered with hope. Ava. The girl who was once invisible, now impossible to forget.